Okay, so everybody, I want to welcome you to this orientation and information briefing for potential mentors here for the Cyber Texas Foundation in support of the Cyber Patriot 14 competition. I'm Dan Cruz. I am the technical mentor coordinator for the foundation. Joining me today as a co-host is Mr. Frederick Hall, but we all call him Frank. Frank has been a past coach. Presently is a coach. He's been a mentor. He's started up teams. He's mentored teams, and right now he's currently mentoring across the country different teams that are coming to him and asking him for help. So knowing that, you should know that we have resources like that in San Antonio, people that are willing to step up and help. Vic Malloy with the foundation is also another person that will step up and help you at the drop of a hat. So I just want to make sure you understand that. We're recording this for those of you that couldn't make the initial appointment. And we hope to be able to put this on our website, which is www.cybertexasfoundation.org. I'm sorry, cybertexas.org, cybertexas.org. And for use by individuals who come in a little bit later. The registration process and the volunteer process goes year-round, even though the competition actually starts in October and runs through January. So what we're going to do today is of course, I've got some slides I want to talk to you about, give you an idea of what Cyber Patriot is, how it operates, what do they do. And then I'll take you over to, on a live feed, hopefully, over to the uscyberpatriot.org site, where you can find a lot of the documentation that you would probably need to be a mentor. More information in depth than what we're providing today. Also, the ever-present and ever-necessary rule book, which you really should take a look at. That's one of the first things you should read. And it gives you the ability to go ahead and understand how the competition is run and what rules need to be adhered. Because even though a team can have 6 people on a team, only 5 can actively compete at any one time. So that means that the coach needs to be, like a basketball team, moving in his best players based on what it is that's going on. So right now we are in Cyber Patriot 14. Like the Super Bowl, they use Roman numerals. And I am wearing the t-shirt from Cyber Patriot 13 because I'm just not a superstitious kind of person. But and by the way, we have plenty of different year t-shirts that we can provide to any and all of you. That's the same thing with you, Frank. If you have some need for some of these shirts, I can give you as many as you want. So what is Cyber Patriot? First of all, you have to understand Cyber Patriot is in more than anything else. It's an organization. And what we're actually involved in is called the National Youth Cyber Defense Competition. Of course, Cyber Patriot is a much more engaging and attractive name. So everybody refers to this as Cyber Patriot. And as you can read on the slide, we're really trying to get high school teams and middle school teams to look for vulnerabilities in a virtual operating system that is provided to you in a timed competition. Now that time is very important, and it starts from the second you open up the image that they release to you. So it's a timed competition. The teams advance by how well they do it, how quickly they can solve the problems and secure the image that secure the network that they're being given, the virtual network. It has two portions to it. There's a network security challenge, and then there's something called the Cisco networking challenge. Frank, could you give us a little bit of background on what each one of those, just overview of what that involves?
Right. So the students will be given a Cisco lab, and either 2 Windows virtual machines and 1 Linux machine, or depending on the round, 2 Windows images or 2 Linux images. But there's always those 3 components. There's always Cisco, Windows, and Linux. Now, what the operating systems are doing is what Dan stated earlier, is you are hardening the system. This is a cyber defense. So you're going in, you're finding the vulnerabilities, you're removing viruses, you're removing unwanted software, you're making the password policies, you're creating all the security policies needed to secure the operating system based on the scenario. The Cisco challenge is something that the coach will actually have to download from Cisco, and it is a network lab where the students have to go in based on the scenario, configure the network. So they would have to go in at various configuring ports. They would have to go in and create a trunk line. They'll have to go in and create VLANs, all the stuff that a network administrator will use or do. That's what they're doing in the challenge.
Thank you, Frank. So what are technical mentors and what do they do? Well, clearly, as a technical mentor, they're the 2 primary people on this team, other than the competitors or the students. The coach is a member of the school. Somehow he's affiliated with the school, maybe a teacher, or maybe someone that's a part of, he's an official of the school. And the coach's job is to administer to the students. Their job is to manage the students, discipline the students, although I will tell you, kids that get into this type of competition are not the problem child. They're not the type that get into trouble. Most of the times, if there's anything, they're impatient because they want to learn so much. Now, the second person then, that coach may or may not have any technical background. Luckily, sometimes they do, and they'll step forward and they'll say, I'll coach the team, and they've had experience doing this. And in that regard, sometimes they act as both coach and mentor. However, everybody's got blind spots. That's where the technical mentor can come in. They're normally an IT experienced person, and you assist the coach. Your focus is the technology end of things. You're the one that's looking at the problem set. You're looking at the systems that are being used. You're the one that actually teaches the technology and fills the gaps that the coach can't. So it's important that that the coach and the assistant, the coach and the mentor work hand in hand. The assistant, the coach's, the mentor's role, the mentor's role is pretty much defined and agreed to by the coach. So the coach can sit there and say, I was voluntold to do this. I'm sorry, I don't know the first thing about it. I just got to manage the students. And the coach may sit there and say, the mentor will sit there and say, okay, well, let's go ahead. I will look at what the problems are here, and I will help guide the students. You'll be able to help me any way I can, or technical mentor, I will help you where you have gaps with my knowledge. And sometimes you're going to have that the coach and the mentor both have gaps, in which case then they reach back to somebody like the Cyber Texas Foundation, and they say, we need somebody that has experience in this area. Frank, is that about the way it normally works?
Yes, that's about what normally happens. Like you were saying earlier, most of the time, we'll say 95% of the time, the teacher that is assigned to be the coach is not a technical person. They're a math teacher, they're a chemistry teacher, they're some kind of science teacher. And they were asked to start a team with them being as the focal point for the school. And the technical mentor comes in to help provide that critical piece of education to help teach the kids the operating systems and how to use Cisco networking.
So one of the questions that I often get asked is, okay, well, how do I actually work in the team? How do I support the team? The team's primary function before they get into the competitions is practices. And this is one of the key areas where a technical mentor actually helps and assists a coach. In fact, this is how they assist the team. I mean, it is from your once you look at what is going to be competed, what they're going to be testing, what they're going to be trying to get these students to do, you can easily start to determine where the weaknesses are. You're going to find some students that are very, very, very much into Windows. You're going to find that the others that are very, very much into Windows and Linux. You're going to find that they're as strong in some areas. 2 or 3 of them are strong. 2 of the others are not as strong. And so this is one of the areas where a technical mentor really shines. They can identify the strengths in certain areas and act as assistant coaches. You can take those people aside and actually be working with them, tutoring them to come up to speed, while the coach or the rest of the team focuses on things that they're really strong in already and don't need any remedial support. There's also the unique part of this competition is you can actually, during the competition, Google and do searches for solutions. And it's kind of like developed that one person on the team becomes the Google Meister. He is the guy that knows how to precisely word a query quickly to get an answer. And this is kind of important because the technical mentor, you're there throughout the entire training process. But once they go into a competition, you cannot participate or support or help in any way possible. So the better you prepare them for what probably going to be coming down the road, the better you train them to how to think the problem through, the better it's going to be for the team once they go into competition. And the last point on this slide is, I think it's important. The role of the technical mentor is a cooperative decision between the technical mentor and the coach. Frank, can you add something about how you run practices?
So the way I run practices for my teams are, normally I split them up into the 3 disciplines. So I have Windows working in one area, Cisco working in one area, Linux working in another area. I bounce around helping all of them, or I pull the kids that need the most help aside and work directly with them to try to get them to understand and better learn what they need to do for the competition. Focusing, say, on Cisco, how do I configure IP address on a port? We will work on configuring a port and putting the proper IP address. Or if it's on Linux, how do I search for a hidden file with a certain permission set? We'll work on that. And I have the older kids that have been on the team for a while. You know, this doesn't necessarily pertain to all teams because some teams are new, but the ones that have been doing it for a while, I will ask them to work with the younger kids while I am bouncing around with the other ones to help, offset. Because sometimes, to be honest, they get tired of me talking and they might take the advice from their fellow peer better than they would from me.
There's also the fact is that the more established teams, they probably have a couple of competitions under the belt, and which means that the seniors have probably been through a couple of them, and they have a much better idea of what to expect and how to prepare, and they can become very, very valuable as you start to put the teams through their paces as you practice, because as Frank said, yes, you can go ahead and you actually have them work on a problem and work on a solution based on their competition knowledge. So assessing the team's strengths, looking at where you need help, where some folks need help, where your best efforts are going to reap some benefits, and how to use the material that's given to you, what those older competitors are doing, and how you might be able to help them and encourage them. This is as much a leadership challenge. In other words, it's not a matter of trying to force them to do something, but the technical mentors also provide some valuable experience in how to think through a problem of this nature. And it's invaluable to these kids as they go through, as they start with this and as they go on through this in life. I think that's a fair statement. Don't you think so, Frank, that you're doing more than just teaching them the technical things?
Yes.
So I'm going to I'd like to let Frank go through some of these areas here to be able to discuss what type of skills are tested. Now, this looks like a long menu list. Some things, everything everything at some degree comes into play, but there's some things that are more critical than others that need to be looked at. Frank, would you mind?
Okay, so this is in essence what the competition setup is. The operating system, these are the operating systems that are going to be used this season, which is Windows 10, Server 2019, Ubuntu 20 and 18, and in the later round, Debian 10. So when the students get these specific images, they are full of vulnerabilities. They are insecure per se. And they have to go in and find all the insecurities based on the scenario that they're given. So they have to have an understanding of the operating system. They have to know how to set the security policies. They have to be able to know how to navigate through, say, the Windows registry. They have to be able to navigate through the Linux file architecture to find certain things, say like the PAM. They have to understand how to configure PAM to make sure that users have the password credentials set correctly, all the login stuff, make sure, password history, everything else, how to set that up. That's what those specifically are focused on. Now, the digital forensics comes into play with the 3 operating systems that are listed above, because each image has either 2 or 3 what they call forensic questions, where they have to find a specific piece of information either buried in the operating system, or it's something that has to be decrypted inside the question that they have to go figure out the answer either through a utility that's on the computer, or they have to go find an online utility or download one. For instance, if they have to find the checksum for something, default for finding a checksum for a file is MD5. Unless the forensic questions gives a specific algorithm to use, we'll say SHA-256, they know to use MD5 to get the checksum of that file. Now, it can go as deep as stenography. Here's a picture. You have to pull the information out of it. The information's encrypted. You have to decrypt it. It takes you to a file location where you find the file. Then you have to answer the question. So depending on the round, it depends on how involved with the forensic question it becomes. First few rounds are always pretty easy. Then, like I said, each round it gets progressively harder. So this is the most difficult thing to prepare for, because it's not a straight, here's how you do this. This is what we're going to expect. Here's a tool you need to use for this. Like Windows, you have a checklist. Bam, 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 do this. Digital forensic questions, it could be anything and anything. The coaches don't know and the mentors don't know until the day of the competition what the questions are going to be asking. Now, after that, you can go back and talk to the teams. Well, okay, did you have a specific difficulty answer this question? If so, what was the question? And if the technical mentor knows, here's what you have to do to answer it, guide them through the process of how they should have answered it. The Cisco networking stuff. Cisco has a very good curriculum set up for the students to follow. It's the equivalent of going through the first certification at Cisco. Okay, right up, we'll say right underneath the CCNA. So if they follow this curriculum, they'll have a good understanding of how to configure router switch, how to do anything with the setting up VPN tunnels, how to put the security on the actual devices, how to set encrypted passwords, how to actually go in, plug everything up physically well within the packet tracer exercise, but they'll have to work with the cables. So do all of this stuff to create the network, to configure the network, troubleshoot the network. And it is very involved. It's very deep. Before they get to the lab, they have a 10 to 20 question quiz they have to do. Good thing is it's open book, so they can at least refer back to the material they were studying to answer the questions. But once that stops, they go straight into the lab. and the labs get very involved. I mean, because you could have multi layer 3 switches hooking up the routers, hooking up to a cloud sitting out somewhere else, which runs a campus, which, arcs off of this, from going down to a file server. So it all depends on the route. So if you're very good at Cisco, your expertise will be much needed with helping the Cisco students figure out all this stuff. And that's the basic overview of what you will see, or what the students see when they do the competition.
And then we have the other things that they're exposed to.
So some within the scenario, there's going to be various things that the scenario says either has to be installed or servers has to be running. And this first half of the list are things that can be installed, what's expected to be installed or updated within the VM itself. So Windows and Linux. If it says, for instance, you have Wireshark up there, that could be considered a hacking tool because you're doing network analysis, scanning for things on a network. You're traffic sniffing, right? You're packet sniffing. You're trying to get information out of it. So unless the scenario says, hey, this has to be on here, that's one of those things you have to tell the kids. You might not want that on here because it can be used for this, to make sure they take it off. The Notepad++, most of the time you upgrade it according to the scenario, and it's what they want on the actual operating system. Cyber Patriot has we'll say a strong learning curve for instilling cyber ethics and online safety to the students that are doing the competition. Because yes, while they're learning how to defend, they have to also understand that what they're learning can be used in the opposite direction. And we don't want them to start doing stuff they're not supposed to be. And they have to understand that, yes, in some instances, if you start doing this outside of a lab environment on an actual computer and you're actually remoting in other places, you're now breaking federal laws. So they go into very, I won't say deep knowledge of what it is, but they give the understanding that, hey, what you're learning isn't be used outside the competition or outside lab environment for learning. Cisco Packet Tracer is what Cisco uses for the lab, for the portion. So if you're very knowledgeable on how the software works, that's even better. But the Cisco Net ACAD is where all the curriculum is going to be. And if you're a mentor, you can register with Net ACAD and have access to all the modules they're learning, so you can help them understand what they'll be learning for the Cisco portion of the competition.
Yeah, that ethics aspect of it is on the list because throughout the entire process, as Frank said, they will be gaining knowledge. And they also have to learn that with knowledge comes great responsibility. And so they have to, you're at that age when you just become tempted to test things and test your authority and test a lot of different things that you're being taught. And I think that part of the technical mentor's responsibility and job is to keep reinforcing the ethics that are behind what they're learning and how not to abuse them. So I'll emphasize that because it is important, and both Foundation and Cyber Patriot stands very, very strongly behind that tenet of teaching cyber ethics as you teach cyber technology. So Frank's just gone through and talked about a lot of the different things that are, that I don't know how often you've been exposed to them, but there's a plethora, just a great deal of support information available. Everything that he's mentioned is at some point available on the websites, and I'm going to take you through there real quickly to show you where some of this information is located. So it's not just being tossed at you. You need to know where the reference library is and where the other answers are. that you need in case you need to go back and try to figure out a question that's been given to you. And the folks in the foundation, we're always available to try to be able to send you to the right person. If we don't know the answer, send you to the right person and say, where would this be found? Or we're having a problem here. Are you all having the same problem? So we're not putting you out there in the desert alone. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give you an idea of the scope of the job. Some of it may be 100% of that scope. Some of it may only be 35, 30, 40% of that scope. But we want to be well prepared if you decide to become a mentor for one of these schools. Now, the process is quite simple. First thing, you have to register as a technical mentor or as a volunteer with the Air Force Association. They run the competition. And what this registration does, as with any organization where you have adults dealing with adolescents, you have to undergo a background check. It's not going to be a problem for them, for the people that are in the military, but you do have to go through a background check. And then once you've been approved, the next step would be for you all to reach back to me, Dan Cruz. It's dcruz@cybertexas.org or mentors@cybertexas.org to let me know that, okay, you've been approved. And then we will try to pair you with a school that is somewhere near your area, a school that really needs help, or a school that is very, very close to moving up to the elite tier and just needs a little more help with the coach and the technical mentor that's there right now. The registration process, it is, well, let me take you now to the website, and hopefully you'll be able to, this will work. Cyber Patriot. The Cyber Patriot is this is the main site where everything is located. The other site would be the Cyber Texas Foundation site, cybertexas.org. We have it organized differently. We have it organized in a way that people just going into the competition, they can go ahead and look for things. They're grouped conveniently in one area. And you can also, and it points to the appropriate place in this central location. So if you look at it right here, I'll just walk you through a couple of things here. If you just look at some of the drop downs, here's a registration site where you would register. Just give you a little bit of that. The registration is fairly simple. Okay. The other areas where things are located, there's a Cyber Patriot startup video that's on here that goes to YouTube. Of course, YouTube wants to show you a commercial first. There is the competition overview. This will give you who, the what, the how, and it's got nested areas in here, which will tell you an overview of how to prepare for a round, in-depth explanation of how it works, a list of the competition hardware and software requirements, the full competition books. Here's another site where you can go ahead and how the competition works. This actually shows you things you should be doing before and during the round. And it's all pretty much in here laid out, and it's been laid out based on the experience of people that have gone through. This has evolved significantly over the past few years because people have contributed back to it to say, we need this, can you put this on here? Sometimes the schools don't even have the technical hardware, minimum hardware. That's one of the things you need to be able to determine first off, whether or not you have the appropriate hardware to even be in the competition. That can be a showstopper. However, it can also be something that the team coach can work through the schools, the ISD, the Independent School Districts Administration, to be able to provide the appropriate hardware, the appropriate laptops, the appropriate computers. Here is the schedule right now for the current competition 14. You'll notice we're already at the end of round one. Scores for round one have already been posted. San Antonio's got one of the teams in the top 10. I believe it's the top 10, certainly, and it's got the number 2 all service schools. Whether I explained it, I'm sure I didn't. There are 3 categories of competition, three categories to compete in. There is the open division where any school can just form a team and they go into it. There is the all services division, and the all services division is made up of junior ROTC, Army, Air Force. There's a Marine Corps junior ROTC units, Naval junior ROTC units, the Air Patrol, Civil Air Patrol, they're also put in here. Those are the all service divisions. And then the 3rd division is the middle schools. The middle schools need mentors, and as you might expect, the middle schools ability to compete is a little, well, it's a little more rudimentary. However, I will tell you, we've got a couple of middle school districts here that are perennially in the platinum area. That's the highest category. They're well coached and the kids are really, really smart. But the majority of the schools have got students that want to get into it in the middle school, and it's their first exposure. And we even have games that Cyber Patriot and the foundation had that we can provide to help keep their interest up as they start to learn cybersecurity. Here's the rule book. I'm not going to go through it, but it has all, as you would expect, it's got everything that you need to know, neatly organized in a time phase kind of thing, kind of a pattern for Cyber Patriot. They put out a new rule book for every year, so you need to make sure that you've got the right rule book in. It's the one that will be on their website. Then their new coaches. A lot of times you're going to have a new coach, and this is particularly true after the pandemic. The pandemic took its toll not just on every facet of life, but the competition itself. We lost like about a third to almost, well, about a third of the competitors. The schools just didn't field teams. And that was because the teachers couldn't get the students together to create teams. And training was very, very difficult. However, the more established schools were able to, they could operate comfortably in a virtual environment. And when you stop to think about it, this is a virtual competition. But you need to have, you need to be there, you need to be together to be able to really benefit from the schooling and the training. They found that to be true in schools, in the classroom. It's also true in the virtual world in this competition. So you're going to have some coaches that are new to this. They've been voluntold that they're going to do this. You can point them here to this portion of it, and there's a lot of different things here that they can learn as a coach, things that they need to know. There are also some archived training modules. Everybody that's in the competition is more than willing to help the next generation. This is a very unique kind of a competition. The word competition is it's in its truest sense. It's the individuals working as a team and working against the clock. And if you can help another team that's struggling, you're going to find that you could almost ask anybody that's competing on some other team, and they'll willingly tell you what the answer is, or they'll willingly share where the place to go look for that is. This is not a hardened, well, it's a hardening competition. This is not the type of competition you normally find in sports. This is a competition where you're trying to lift the entire community in this discipline, lift their knowledge and their ability to create new cyber warriors. And in that regard, it's cooperative. So you're going to find a lot of people contribute to these training modules. Frank, could you just add something to that? Because I think that's an important point, the cooperation.
So as a coach, I don't share everything, obviously, but the main stuff that's going to help a team learn or be able to progress to the next level is I openly share. I'll share common resources with coaches, because the overall goal is to take these kids that are interested in this specific area to put them on a pathway to help fill that work gap that we have in cybersecurity. Most often we find that this is probably the starting point for that. So if they get interested in this, whether it's in middle school or a freshman in high school, they will progress through this either through college to get a degree to enter public-private industry, or they will end up joining the service, Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever. I usually push for Air Force to do this. And it's going to help eventually fill that gap that we have with these cyber professionals. Now, is it very technical? Obviously not. It provides that fundamental knowledge of how to secure an operating system, how to secure a network, how to configure certain things. But you plant that seed, you get them interested in this, they will pursue it throughout life into a career. And that's what this program does better than anyone I've seen.
Yeah, well said, Frank. Yeah, well said. Especially somebody's trying to help a team that's in the lower rung, that the three categories are silver, gold, and platinum. So if you've got a team that's just getting started, they're in that silver category, it's not unusual for somebody from the platinum to reach down and try to help them move up into the next category by trying to, as Frank said, show them where some of these things are located and where some of this help is. There was another point I was going to make, and it slipped me. So pardon me. I'll drop my age card on that one. Next thing here is you can actually, if you're into it, you can build your own practice images based on Windows 10. Now this says in Windows 7, but you can actually build your own practice image if you've got a group that's more advanced and you want to be able to test them on some other things. They don't always have to use the school solution. You could build an image and you could throw something at them that they're not prepared to, that they haven't seen yet. That's one of the functions of building your own image, isn't it, Frank?
Yes, that's exactly it. There are images you can find and download and just throw it at them at a, spur of the moment type thing to see how well they're stacking up and learning everything. But if you build your own images, you could focus on specific areas that the kids are having issues learning. Specifically writing policies, digging into the registry, modifying the registry, stuff like that. You can make an image specifically for that and work with the scoring engine to build a full-blown practice images from forensic question to system hardening.
If you want to see what one of these things look like, one of the things that the Cyber Patriot program is doing this year, it's actually sending an interactive demo. You can go ahead and you can download it if you want to see what it actually looks like. It's not, you don't need to have an active image. There's no internet required. It's a self-contained kind of a demo to show you, oh, so this is the way that they do these things. And if you need help with that, we can get someone from the foundation to be able to walk you through it, to be able to explain something you may not understand. But it's fairly rudimentary, but it does give you an idea of exactly how this works. Finally, the Cisco NetCAD that Frank mentioned, this is where you're going to be able to find all things Cisco. You're going to be able to go in here, everything that they're looking for, the kind of things that are going to be in the competition. You're going to be able to find these things in here. And so even if you don't have a background with Cisco specifically, you can go ahead and be able to get enough from this to be able to understand the nature of the questions you're going to be, the nature of the competition, and how you're going to be tested. I just remembered the point I was going to make earlier on that last image, and that is that what Frank was talking about, getting them and helping them understand what's going on. There is a process and a discipline that goes through working these problems. And it helps organize their mind as to how to systematically look for a problem. How do you look for the solution? Where is the problem? And as a technical mentor, as you're walking them through the solution set, you're actually teaching them this discipline of how to walk through a problem of this nature, so that when you're not there, they can go ahead and use that same discipline. So we've been doing all the talking. Frank, is there anything else you'd like to add at this point?
For the Cisco students specifically, this is the only portion of the competition where they can actually sit down and study at home. Because the competition that they have to do is based off the modules they're learning. So if you as the mentor are in Net ACAD, you get access to what they're learning this year, or the current season. You can sit down with them, go through the modules, and tell them, okay, here's explain what each module is explaining, and make sure they understand how the Cisco networking works for that specific portion of the competition. The Windows and the Linux, you kind of have to play it by ear while you're at practice. You could tell them, hey, you might want to check on how to do this kind of policy at home, or how to go into the policy editor in Windows while you're off, do some independent research. Cisco is the only one that has a structured curriculum, which helps them out a lot, especially during the competition.
If you all have any questions up to this point, be happy to answer them. One of the questions that we normally get is how often do these teams practice? That's at the discretion of the coach. More often than not, it's no more than twice a week, because the kids are busy. They've got a lot of other things that they're involved in. And sometimes the other teams that are more established, sometimes they'll go ahead and they'll work through on Saturdays. But it normally is once or twice a week. Okay.
Sweet. I did have one
part?
question.
Yes.
Okay.
You go, Archie.
I was just gonna say, would we be part of this next round coming up, the one from the 12th to the 14th?
Mentors can join at any time.
Mentors can join at any time. And it might be worthwhile for you to be able to join a team and help them as they go on to their next level. Okay.
So how long do the background checks normally take before we can participate with the team?
Yes, it depends. So you got the Cyber Patriot background check you have to do to be registered as a mentor. And then the ISD will also make you do background check for them, and they usually take about a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to fill out the online, which is a lot quicker. Some schools you have to do paper form, turn it back into the instructor, but most time that's about a week. But if you're on the main Cyber Patriot website listed as a mentor, they can start matching you up with a school. Even if it's virtually, you can do the virtual option, so you're not there in person.
Yeah.
As long as the school has the means to set up a Zoom, Google Meet, or something, you can meet with the teams that way as well.
I would mention that most organizations, the way the system is set up, you can become a mentor, and then teams can go looking for you and say, I need a mentor, and they can go looking at the listing of mentors. Here in San Antonio, we have the Cyber Texas Foundation. We try to cut that process short by being able to say, we know exactly who needs somebody, and we can go ahead and put you in touch with somebody immediately, rather than going through the process of, does anybody need me? We will hook you up real quick.
So for the sorry, was that all, LT? I didn't mean to jump in.
No, go ahead. So was that it, Nathan? Okay.
But yeah, so like this competition coming up, or the round, sorry, on the 12th to the 14th, as mentors, because I know in the rules it states that you're not participating in it. Are we just kind of like sidelined, not needed or used type of thing during that time, and we would just jump in and help them train up until the 12th?
So yes and no. So up until the 12th, you'll help them learn. Obviously, you're there to give them that technical guidance, what they need to help make them a stronger team. What I found is that sometimes the coaches just need extra technical help there on the ground during competition. For instance, like the BM will break. Most of the coaches want to understand, okay, here's how you reload the image. Here's where you can pick up. Here's how you stop the image or restart it. They might need that extra help with that specifically, to act as an interface between the ISD for technical assistance, and if they have to call Cyber Patriot, to give Cyber Patriot a technical briefing on what the problem is, so their team won't get docked for anything. So the mentors themselves have a role during the competition, even though it's not directly here helping the students. You're more or less assisting the coach as a technical advisor to make sure the competition runs smoothly.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay. But once again, I would encourage you to please, if you have any interest in this at all, register. And then we can go ahead and help you hook up with the team. Go through the background information that I pointed out that's at uscyberpatriot.org, and go looking through that information. We gave you a very brief, very cursory overview of a lot of the things that are going on based on years of experience with Frank and myself in helping schools identify and find mentors. And I've been recruiting mentors. So I would encourage you to go take a look at that, and I think you'll understand that it really is, the real challenge is communication with the student. And any teacher, they'll tell you that's always the real challenge. I'm sure each one of you has got the technical background skills to be able to participate and help. So on behalf of the Cyber Texas Foundation, Frank, thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. And again, remind your compatriots that I will be following up with an email message as to where they can find this video and this orientation. So until we meet, go San Antonio, and thank you for taking part in this orientation.